let's go ahead and start with the prompt. Which finding would support the hypothesis? So what's the hypothesis? So this biologist team have investigated two subspecies of this type of bird that live in the same region, but one subspecies migrates and the other doesn't migrate. The researchers found that due to slight differences in feather shape, the feathers of migratory forked birds, the migratory ones, make a sound during flight that is higher pitched than the sound made by the feathers of the non-migratory males. They hypothesize that the females are attracted to the specific sound made by the males of their own subspecies, and therefore, over time, the female preference will drive further genetic and anatomical divergence between the subspecies. So we're hearing that there are two subspecies, one migrates, one doesn't. They have different feather shape, and therefore their wings make a different sound. Females are attracted to the sound that's made by their own subspecies, and this is going to drive them to become further and further different, more and more different from one another, and maybe even, I guess, is suggesting become two totally different species at some point in the future. So let's start looking at the answers. A, the feathers on the wings of the migratory birds have a narrower shape than those of the non-migratory. It's in line with everything they said, but it's not really supporting the final view. So I don't really like it. Let's put a little slash right here, but we're not totally crossing it out. B, over several generations, the sound made by the feathers of the migratory ones grow higher pitch relative to that made by the non-migratory. Well, that makes sense because it's saying that over time, this is going to drive further and further divergence. So in other words, they're going to change more and more and be more and more different from one another. And that would make sense for the sound to be higher and higher pitched over time. So that's way better than A. So I think based on that, we can definitely cross A out. C, the different types of birds communicate different messages to each other depending on whether their feathers create high pitch or low pitch sounds. Once again, that's in line just like A was, but we're looking for the idea that they're going to be further and further apart over time. And once again, if they communicate special messages, you can imagine that means they'll get along better and maybe they'll be further and further different over time. But B is still better because it's talking about the sound, and the sound, the higher pitch sound, is what attracts the mates and therefore has a much higher bearing on the reproduction. So still B is better than C, just like it was better than A. And D, the breeding habits of the migratory and non-migratory remain generally the same. So this is saying that they're generally the same. They're not really diverging. So that doesn't support anything at all. So we can more easily get rid of D. But the answer here is B.